I went into it thinking the same as I'm sure everyone else does, that every seat would be separated by one seat, or there'd be, a gap every other row. But the reality was, when I got on that flight, every seat was full. There you go.
Thank you.
Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Now, if you don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, then there's a chance you might not know about something that I've been working on for the last 3 and a bit years, which is an electric motorsport called Formula E. It keeps me very busy, and I've been doing it for the last 3 and a bit years. Now recently, at the end of November, there was some pre-season testing for Formula E in Valencia in Spain, which we flew to. Now, as you can imagine, flying at the moment is a bit weird during the pandemic. It's not as we're used to. And whenever I do post about taking a flight somewhere on Twitter or Instagram, usually what follows are a few messages or a few replies asking what it's like. How safe is it? What are the procedures in place? What are the risks? What are the rules? That sort of thing. So I thought I'd make a little video about my experience traveling to Spain and hopefully answer some of those questions. Plus, you'll get a chance to see me have a COVID test, which is quite an interesting experience, and also get an insight to some of the stuff that I do with Formula E as a digital presenter. So grab yourself a coffee, tea, juice, or water, whatever you want, you do you, and let's get stuck into it. Welcome to Heathrow Airport. This airport is so quiet. All the shutters are up on the shops, most of the shops are closed, so it's very eerie. It's quite strange because this isn't the first time that I've flown during lockdown or during the whole pandemic. I flew in August for Formula E races to Berlin, but during then it was sort of like that slightly relaxed period, especially in the UK, when people were traveling again and it was a bit more kind of normal. So the airport was quiet, but the flights were kind of uncomfortably busy. I went into it thinking the same as I'm sure everyone else does, that every seat would be separated by one seat, or there'd be a gap every other row. But the reality was, when I got on that flight, every seat was full. Apart from people wearing masks, there wasn't really any extra precautions in any way. But I think that's obviously changed again now we're back in lockdown again. I am actually really annoyed about having to fly, because at the start of this year I made a bit of a pact with myself, and I said that I wouldn't fly short haul this year because I'd become more aware of carbon footprint and my own emissions that I do myself. So I wanted to kind of cut down that. I've changed my diet massively, but flying was really crucial. Obviously I fly a lot with work. This channel is filled with travel videos from all over the world. There's a lot of travel involved there, and a lot of air travel, which obviously is not good for carbon footprint. So I said at the start of the year, short haul flights, you won't be doing them this year. And I was doing pretty well. I went skiing at the start of the year, and I took the train, which was great. I had trains booked for Paris and Rome when I was going to Formula E races, and I had an electric car ready to drive to Berlin. So I was ready, everything was going, and then obviously the pandemic hit. And a lot of those races got cancelled, but not just that, it suddenly became more unsafe or not even viable when travelling to be able to do it over the land. I'm fuming because not only am I having to fly short haul, which I really didn't want to do this year. Yes, I haven't flown any other flights long haul this year because of the pandemic, so it definitely equals out, and I'm still having a smaller footprint this year than I usually would. The reason why short haul flights are worse than long haul flights in terms of carbon emissions, based on the other options available, obviously flying to Australia, you probably use more emissions having to get there over boats and planes and cars and stuff than just taking one plane. But short haul is especially because taking off and landing is where a plane uses the most amount of fuel. What we should all be trying to avoid when thinking about reducing our carbon footprint, short haul flights, we don't really need to do it where there's other options. And I'm annoyed because on paper there are other really feasible options to get to Valencia that I would have done, but safety, and obviously because I'm here to do a job and me being able to just give that service to who's employed me. But there is a very fortunate catch, and that being Formula E being the very forward-thinking, sustainable championship that it is, offset everyone's flights that's involved in Formula E. The whole championship is net zero, which means essentially that since they were started, they've gone back and they've looked at all of their emissions, and they've put practices in place to reduce all those emissions, but those that they haven't been able to reduce, they've offset, which means the amount of carbon they've put into the atmosphere, they've invested in projects that take it out of the atmosphere. That includes everyone that's involved in Formula E, so all of the presenters, all of the filming crews, the broadcast, everyone that flies for Formula E, their flights are offset. So the fortunate thing, yes, I'm having to fly, yes, I'm not happy about it, but at least the flying I am having to do, short haul, has been offset. Okay, time to see how busy this flight is. So, those interested, flying was pretty straightforward. For those interested in what it's like flying in COVID, that is. And I'd say it was about 75-80% full, so probably good 200-250 people on that plane. And definitely none of the separated seat rules that I mentioned before. Made a little bit more comfortable though by the fact that coming to Spain now, everyone has to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of flying. So assuming that was the same for everyone on the plane, which I'm pretty sure it was, I guess the risk is being lowered, but still a bit of a weird experience that I haven't quite got used to yet. It is a really strange thing because obviously I've done a lot of traveling over the last however many years, but it's a normal thing to do. You know, the procedures are the same, checking in, waiting for the plane, getting on the plane, but within this pandemic, everything sort of has a different glow on it. You have a different perspective, and suddenly you start seeing things for being quite weird, like the idea of 200 people sitting on this tube that floats in the sky, and how, oh yeah, of course things could be spread that way because you're getting all these people from one place and taking them to another, and who knows, you know, who's carrying what. So it's only when you start hearing about how things happened and how we've got into this position that you start seeing all these things we've done and how we've kind of encouraged it, really. But what's interesting is coming from one country and you kind of get used to how things are in London or in the UK or wherever you live, and then seeing how lockdown and how coronavirus has affected other countries and seeing how they're dealing with it. It's quite weird, and it's this kind of sense of unity that like, the whole world is in this together, and then you get that hit by that massive wave again of how big this thing actually is, how much it has impacted every single country in the world in a big way. I mean, what do you guys think about this? I don't know if this is any new information for you, but if it is, then yeah, let me know in the comments if this is something you've considered doing, if this is helpful at all, learning about what the flying experience is like. But yeah, that was my experience today, and it could be different for the person tomorrow, but that was what I experienced. So tomorrow we go and get tested, and then have to isolate until we get our test results back. Okay, so following day, down at the track now, about to get my PCR COVID test. If you've never seen one, this is your chance. There you go.
Thank you. Can you take a seat, please?
I can indeed.
You know how it works?
This is test number 7 for me.
Oh, okay.
So, let's do it.
The first one. Okay.
That helps.
Here we go. Very good.
Awesome. All good? Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. It really is that simple. Obviously when you're having them this regularly, the throat ones do fine. I've had nose and throat both before, but yeah, that's it. And now we've got to go back to the hotel to isolate. There's new drivers here, there's new cars in terms of how they look, and it's been a while since I've seen cars on track and seen a lot of the people that I'm familiar working with, so I won't lie, I'm pretty excited. testing here in Valencia. The cars are going around the track for the last session today. Right now I'm just filming a few bits of the camera for the Formula E channel, some wrap-ups and talking about the teams and drivers of the next season, some tech pieces, that sort of thing. That's pretty much what I do for Formula E most times. It's just these little digital formats that go on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, talking about, you know, which drivers are doing what, how they're getting on, how the race works out, what that means competitively, just trying to spice up the championship, which it doesn't really need that much help with, because one thing about Formula E is that it is super competitive and it isn't exactly like one driver wins every race or one team wins every race. It's very tight. For instance, for testing the last few days, there's been less than a second of timing per lap separating every driver on the grid, all 24 drivers within a second of each other, which means looking at the season, it's going to be competitive and it's just going to take that extra level of skill and understanding of all things Formula E, like energy management because it's batteries, regenning, using attack mode, things like that. They're going to come into play way more than just an outright pace in the car. So it does come down to basically how good the driver is, which is something I absolutely love about Formula E.